Okay, I think we can get started now. Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's session from alert fatigue to augmented decisions. My name is Jagdish Upadhyay. I'm the head of marketing at Balbix. I'm really excited to have this conversation here. Every CISO knows the grind, alerts piling up, too much noise, and never enough time to actually lead. Today, we are going to talk about how AI can flip that script, cutting through the noise, shrinking alert fatigue, and giving CISOs back time to focus on strategy. And we got perfect duo to unpack this. John Shaffer, ex-CISO at Greenhill, bringing frontline perspective, and Gaurav Banga, founder and CEO of Balbix, with the innovation lens. Just a little housekeeping here before we dive in. If you've got any questions, please drop them into the Q&A box, and we will tackle them at the end. All right, let's jump in. Over to you, Gaurav.
All right, thank you, Jagdish and John. Welcome to our webinar. Always good to chat with you. And I kind of remember, um, I know Jagdish introduced you very briefly, but I remember meeting you the very first time when I met you, and it was by one of our shared acquaintances, mutual acquaintances. This is the guy who worked with me over two companies, and he had worked with you before as well, right? So that was a connection. And he said we were talking about getting early customers for Balbix, and how the drill is. Early customers are people who are executives who are visionary, and executives who look beyond kind of like this. Almost like put together meal that pretends to be great one day, right? And then
Yeah.
they can see beyond that. So that was you. And I remember this guy came to me, and my colleague Manish, he came to me and he said, like, look, I've done this correlation of successful companies and the CISOs who are early adopters of these companies, and I've sorted them out, and these are the people I know, and so I want to introduce you to John Shaffer. So that's how we met.
That's a name from the past too. That's how old we are.
So 2017, that was when it was,
Yeah.
and I know it was a lot of fun working with you over the years, and you've helped shape a lot of what we do. But going back to the topic of this webinar, I do have a few rapid fire questions for you on this topic, right? So, and I know you've been asked this before, but let me ask it again.
Sure.
When it comes down to helping people understand the grind of a CISO of being buried, can you like share your thoughts on what your grinding day or grinding day of a CISO looks like? I know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can break it down into several points. I mean, I think the first thing that I can come up with is just a constant threat management, alert fatigue, and phishing and ransomware, and 0 days and patching. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that we deal with. Uh, on top of that, we have pressure from the business that's justifying our budgets and selling security to management who think that security is just a cost center. And then as far as the business goes, balancing risk versus enabling the business, and dealing with board and executive communications, and translating that into business language. And then I think the last big thing is just compliance and regulation. The endless audits, customer questionnaires, and proving that your security is good enough. And it's not just good enough to have the controls. They need to be documented and they need to be demonstrated. And I think that you put all those things together, and that makes for a pretty busy day.
So when you really talk about all the signals that you're taking in on a given day, right? I mean, can you share a moment when signal fatigue hit home for you or your team, or what kind of alerts they were or signals they were?
Well, we were reevaluating our SIM, and part of the way that SIM vendors price out their product is how many alerts you get. And we went. So I don't know the exact point in time when I did this, but I remember that the number that we were generating was 11 million alerts a month, or over 11 million alerts a month. And that's when it really hits you that who can, I don't care how big your team is, who can handle that.
Yeah, yep, yep, yep. And like what were you doing with those 11 million alerts?
Well, we triage them the best we can. I mean, I used managed service MSSPs to work and to tune our SIM. I mean, we had some I used multiple MSSPs for different parts of our security, and I think between those three plus vendors that I use, we were hoping that those alerts that really mattered floated to the top. But I think SIMs are as good as the work you put into it. I don't think the early SIMs, or at least the SIMs we were on, were so dynamic that they weren't using AI to sift through and really find the things that mattered. So, I mean, we didn't get compromised, but it's still, when you see that many alerts, there's got to be a point in time where you think you've missed something.
So, John, do you think that constant firefighting impacts your ability or the ability of your peers to focus on, the stuff that matters, longer term strategy, all that?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think when you're just focusing on the day to day, you don't get to spend time on looking towards the future, and I think that's where I really think that AI comes into play. I think that if it works properly, it's going to reduce the noise and help us focus on what's important, and then we can refocus on long-term strategy. But there's got to be a better way to deal with the daily grind.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, what's your view on how AI can help?
Yeah, I mean, it's the way I think. If you just think about AI as the natural extension of human intelligence, right, from which it is inspired by, and we kind of think about AI as automated human intelligence. So then the when you say 11 million alerts, and then when you said we hope that the set of tools and the set of MSSPs and the team, they make sure that the alerts that matter are the ones that get triaged, and the ones that don't matter are the ones that are filtered out, right? And
Yeah.
there we kind of run into, just because of the sheer 11 million number, you kind of run into the limits of what human beings can do. And just to add on to that, right, in some of our large customers, in fact, in our very largest customer, I know the stats, we look about 0.5 petabyte of data every 1 hour, right? So a petabyte every 2 hours. And when you think about it, what that means is it would take a team of 200 people 20 lifetimes to look at 1 petabyte of data.
That's right. And that's I think the scary thing. I mean, certainly we're a smaller company when we were doing this, but I remember we did an internal red team, and there was only 2 systems that caught the behavior that these guys were, showing. And I knew what was going on, so I kind of was watching our logs, but the alert that mattered was a low level alert. And if you think about it, the bad guys aren't sitting around saying, "Hey, I'm here. Come get me." They don't want to be seen. So I think that's where you need to be careful about focusing on everything, because the bad stuff, I think, is quiet for a long time until it's too late.
Yeah. And I think that's really what it comes down to, which is that, can I focus on everything? And I think the promise of AI is that with a reasonable investment, and that has to be true, it cannot be an exorbitant amount of money, right? Because nobody has that. So, for a reasonable investment with the right AI, I believe that the promise is that we can look at a lot of stuff, low level stuff. We can have
Yeah.
a very accurate model. With an AI, you would probably get visibility like what a CT scanner delivers compared to, for example, an X-ray machine or an ultrasound, right? So
Right.
with that kind of visibility, with that kind of you can write more sophisticated prioritization methods, and that can deal with, and those prioritization methods can also be written better with AI.
Right.
And I think that is our opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So, John, going back to this topic of your 11 million alerts, right? And when you think about AI and security operations, what excites you the most?
All right. Well, I think I have a decent list of things that I can come up with. I mean, I think the first thing that AI helps with is speed and scale, and I just what you talked about, how AI can analyze massive amounts of data faster, faster than any human can do it, and it can just reduce the amount of time, and you get a quicker response. So I think that's probably the biggest one. Uh, and then it comes down to then the noise reduction. It's the same thing. We're drowning in alerts, and how can we focus on the things that matter, on the threats that matter? So I think that's another thing that AI can bring to the table. I think another thing is AI can learn, and so you have an adaptive defense model, and can hopefully learn what attackers are doing, and move from a static to a dynamic behavior-based defense. And I think that's pretty big. And then I'll go quickly on a couple other things like SOC augmentation. I mean, I do think that you're never gonna. I don't know how you. I mean, I shouldn't say never because that could be wrong. But AI is going to really help uh, your analysts figure things out quicker and faster, and perform at a higher level, and ease the talent shortage. I mean, I think trying to find people is a difficult task, and training them is difficult. So I think that's helpful. And I think the last thing I can think of is just the proactive threat hunting. That AI is able to go in and look at indicators of compromise and hopefully detect incidents before they escalate. And I think it allows us to become more proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah. And I think this will kind of happen in stages, right? So, um, taking taking an analogy of a watcher or a first defender, maybe an emergency room doctor, right? So today, what
Yeah.
happens is doctors do the initial triage, and then based on that, they order certain tests. Like they will say, go do a CT, or go do a blood test, or go do this, or go do that, and then based
Yeah.
on the information, they make the further diagnosis. This would kind of upend the whole thing and say, I already did a CT. Here it is. I already did a blood test. I did all possible blood tests that you could possibly ask for. Now just ask me whatever you have. I've done everything, right?
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. I mean, I didn't even think of that, but you have the emergency room stopping the bleeding, and then you have somebody coming in and figuring out what's going on. That's really good.
Yeah, so if you fit that, right? So, John, I mean, a lot of times there have and you know this from not just your interaction with AI and the recent stuff, but also a long history of making bets on and new technologies, right?
Yeah.
When we kind of look at a bet from new technology, obviously the first thing that comes in is the why should I not do this, right? I mean, it's like if it doesn't work, if it doesn't, all the fears come in, right? I mean, what happens if it doesn't work? What
Yeah.
happens if it doesn't? And then, of course, there's the possible benefit, right? I mean, business impact, positive business impact, like my company and my team will be freed up and that kind of. So when you think about the business impact perspective of AI helping us reduce the noise and alerts, right? What do you think is the most important thing for you and for your peers?
Well, I mean, I think you can look at things like you can lower your risk and you can lower your cost. But you're really, you're taking the burden off the analyst, and eliminating human error uh, for things that they don't, for things that analysts don't want to do. If you could take that, what if you can take your team and shift, 20-25% of your time from firefighting to strategy? I think that's a huge impact. So, I mean, I think in a nutshell, that's where we're at.
All right, so I'm gonna repeat back what you just said. I think the two words you said so easily: lower risk and lower cost. That kind
Yeah.
of like that's the opportunity. And then I think the other more subtle stuff is takes the burden of the analyst, right? And just like
Yeah.
um, um, kind of something that we forget, and something that even ties back to the fact that we don't have enough people that we need to do this petabyte of analysis. It's never going to happen, right? So we
Well, I mean, like you said before, I mean, that half a petabyte of data to get humans to do that, you're never going to finish.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you could go from firefighting to something better, then that's good. And the way I kind of look at it is, um, there's a lot of people who kind of are forward thinking. That's just the nature of who people are. And then there's more skeptical people. And I'm
Yeah.
not against skeptical people. In fact, I have a lot of skeptical people in my organization. I like to keep them there to keep me honest. But we have skeptics, and then we have some of the finest CISOs I know have been skeptics. And so for a CISO who is skeptical about AI today, right, and they have good reason to, because there's a lot of hype out there, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell them, like, what would you tell them based on your experience?
Well, I mean, I think the skepticism, I understand that, and I think it's healthy. I mean, I don't think you should just believe everything you hear. But I think what I would tell CISOs is that AI isn't about replacing humans. I mean, it's more about freeing teams from the repetitive, low value work that burns analysts out. And I think uh, the way you build confidence is to start small and pick use cases like alert enrichment or false positive reduction and just measure that impact and then scale from there. Uh, I think what you really need to think about is, you need to know that our adversaries are already leveraging AI. So I don't think it's our choice of whether to use it or not to use it. It's like, how do we use it responsibly with the right governance and human oversight to give our teams the advantage? So I think that's, in a nutshell. I mean, you're fighting against people that know how to use it. You got to fight fire with fire. So, uh, I think there's things that you can. I think when you're going through the exercise, uh, you need to make sure that there's data privacy in place, and then model training is private. Uh, you certainly want to vet your vendors and look for AI transparency documents. Uh, and just understand how vendors approach AI on their own platform, and you have to really dig into the vendors and make sure there is a lot of hype in AI, and you have to cut through that. So uh, I think that not using AI is going to be tough for businesses to avoid, and you need to embrace it.
Yeah. And I think part of the skepticism really comes from, almost all of us as consumers, we use ChatGPT and sometimes Claude and some of the other AI tools, and we kind of know all the errors that these tools still make. They're very powerful, but they also have a little bit of a personality of their own, which is sometimes non-deterministic, sometimes imprecise, non-repeatable. AI forgets things, the context window problem. We feel intuitively as we interact with Chat GPT and Claude and others, Gemini and Grok, and we feel these things, right? So the question really comes in is, well, I can't afford any of that in my security program.
Yeah.
And that gives a lot of people pause and say, okay, well, if this is what AI is, yeah, I'll use it to find restaurants where the cost of a mistake of going to the wrong restaurant is kind of low. I just get a bad meal, right?
Yeah.
And AI doesn't really get that. But I'm not going to use it for mission critical things, right? So there is there's this gap between, consumer grade AI,
Yeah.
then enterprise grade AI, and then
Yeah.
cybersecurity grade AI, where the cost of making mistakes is the highest, right? And I'm not saying cybersecurity is the only domain. There are, for example, if you're doing, medicine qualified, pharmaceutical final drug evaluation and things like that, where the stakes are perhaps even higher, right?
Right.
Definitely, there is, consumer grade, general enterprise grade, and then you have the mission critical grade, and cybersecurity certainly is in that mission critical enterprise grade category. In the state,
there's tools out there that can start to help you at least begin to understand what's going on, and I think that that's really the direction people need to take. I know when it first became a thing, our legal and compliance departments were like, let's block AI at the firewall level. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you still have access to Google, and for whatever it's worth, you can get a lot of the information out of Google that you can get out of AI. It's just that AI does it for you about 4,000 times faster, right? But you can still get the same bad information to some extent. I think it's just a matter of, really starting to monitor how people are using it, getting tools in place that can help you understand what people are trying to do with it, and then start to put guardrails on it. I mean, particularly when you're talking about taking your company's intellectual property and maybe dumping it up into Claude or one of these things to analyze. People don't know. I don't think they really think about the repercussions of doing that. And what if you throw a payroll file up there and you want to do an analysis, and all of a sudden it's out there? So I think those are the things that you really need to be careful with. And it's like anything else; they have to get comfortable with it. It's the same way when you told people that we were going to start using MFA. They hated it, and then they got used to it. And I think it's just going to be a natural progression uh, to embracing it.
Yeah, I think John, you said something very, very critical over there, right? Which is that I think we've found that when you have new technology, it's very hard to put a lid on it, right? And people will find ways around it, right? Your people, like the enterprise people,
Yeah,
they will always find a way to use new technology. So the much better approach is, instead of blocking it, is to give them a sanctioned way of using it, right?
yeah,
And with all the caveats that, look, this is sanctioned, this is protected, this has all the protections. Please use this. Do not go to the other one, which was got
right.
bad things about it, right? This is better. This is against the rules. This is for the rules, and try to make sure that your internal alternative to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it
Yeah,
is better. And so it naturally becomes the thing that people gravitate towards. And it's not that hard to create um, a better alternative to ChatGPT and cybersecurity, right? In fact, I mean, Microsoft has done a fantastic job with Copilot for incident
yeah,
response teams, right?
yeah,
But doing something similar across the board for all possible cybersecurity is imperative for a different reason, because if you don't do it, some of our colleagues are going to try to use ChatGPT, and that would be a disaster, right, from a privacy standpoint. And it's just impossible to plug in all the holes there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can definitely tell you that, particularly in the financial services space, people running companies think that AI is a competitive advantage, and they're not thinking about the security. They're like, we need it. This is what's going to make us better. And then on the technology side, you have the CIO and the CISOs saying, whoa, wait a minute. We don't know what's going on. And so there's a battle brewing. And I think that's where there's a way that you can make everybody happy. It just takes a little, it's AI has come at us so fast, you forget it's only been around really for a couple of years that people really understand it. So,
All right. I think there is one more comment that you made, which I want to dig in a little bit deeper, which is, like, if you fast forward 3, 4, 5 years, um, is there any other way? Is there an alternative to not somehow figuring out how to use AI to deal with alerts?
I think the cat's out of the bag. And no, I don't. I mean, I think that's the momentum's there, and hopefully as this space still matures, you get less of worrying about hallucinations and that you're getting the right information. Uh, I mean, even what if AI does make an error? Like, is that they might make an error on something that a human may have never seen, so it's already going to happen. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's here to help us, and it goes back to the same thing. Uh, People trying to do bad things are already starting to use it. So we're just going to have to learn. We're going to have to learn how to harness it, and I don't think it's going away, and I think it'll just get better.
All right. So, John, I have a slightly different perspective on this.
All right.
I want your
Let's
take
hear
on
it.
it as well, right? I mean, I think machines are fighting machines. I mean, machines are fighting humans right now, and I mean, even though AI might be new, and we started talking about AI-enabled, AI-powered cybersecurity attackers, AI-powered hackers, AI-powered whatever adversaries, all we have started talking about them. But the scripted adversary has been around for a long time, right? We call them script kiddies, right? And that was an example of machines fighting a human team, right?
Yeah.
With AI, it's like the way I kind of view it, it is machines fighting machines, right? That's the only answer, right? Because a human being cannot, by themselves,
Correct.
operate at machine speed, right? And that physics doesn't compute, right? So machines are going to fight machines. There's no other way.
Right.
In this particular case, it's AI machines fighting AI machines. If you don't have an AI machine, better get one together. Something that you understand, something that you know how to use, something where you know the strengths and the weaknesses. So for me, it's a question of everybody needs to take the plunge. Unfortunately, CISOs have one more thing to worry about, which is
Yep.
understanding. Security teams at least have one more thing to worry about. It is really understanding their AI approach, right? So,
What,
by the way,
what do you think about quantum computing and what it's going to do to this?
I think that's a whole different topic, right? I mean, in the sense that quantum, at least there we have hope, right? The concept of quantum safe cryptography does exist. It may not be up to the mark right now, but thankfully,
Right.
and eventually, I'm hoping that this is just an algorithmic, progression, just like we used to use SHA-1 once upon a time, and now we don't. We use certain crypto algorithms, and we won't in the future, right? So that to me is a much more, from a cybersecurity perspective, it seems like a much more um, say easier. I shouldn't use the word easier, less challenging problem
Sure.
than AI, right? To me,
Yeah.
AI is it's an opportunity, and but for whatever reason, it's also a challenge for a lot of people, right? And which
Yeah.
understandably so.
Yeah.
So I think we have a couple of questions. Jagdish, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. One other question that came just now is that how do you justify AI investment when budgets are flat and legacy tools are consuming dollars?
I think I think need to start reevaluating your legacy tools. Uh, I mean, I don't think every AI, I don't think all the AI security tools out there are prohibitively expensive, but I think there's a balance, and I think that you have to be able to talk to your senior management, and you have to work on getting that budget. I don't know that there's really another answer for that.
And what kind of mistakes should, this is another second question, what mistakes should teams avoid when bringing AI into the workflows?
Well, I mean, I think the big one that I can think of just based on the experience I've had is that I think you need to find some kind of system that can provide visibility so that you can see what users are doing, so that you don't get caught in a trap after. And if I don't think I don't think it's prohibitively expensive to go ahead and do that, just to kind of get an idea of what users are doing, what kind of prompts are they asking, and trying to figure out uh, how you can offer that in a more enterprise solution. So uh, I think the biggest mistake is turning it off and not letting people use it. And then if you turn it on, the big mistake is not getting some kind of visibility into it.
You got time for one more question. So fast forward 2, 3 years, what does CISO's day look like with AI fully embedded?
Oh, they won't have to do anything anymore. AI will just do it for them. 3 years is a long time in technology years. I don't, at this point, I don't know that I can see that far ahead. I mean, I do think that ultimately AI is going to it is going to make it easier to do those things that, um, were really like time consuming and difficult. And, maybe it's going to mean that you need less people on your staff, but which is not the thing that everybody wants to hear. But I think that I think that it's just going to make everybody's life a little bit easier moving forward. It's kind of like going from horses to cars.
Well, that's an excellent way to end. Thank you so much, John. We are at the top of the 1 minute over, actually. Thank you so much. This
Thanks
is
for having me.
conversation. Always great to chat with you. And
You as well. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank
It's
you.
always a challenge.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.